lacquer has been curing for about 3 weeks, and it should be pretty dry and stable now. So I've got a variety of sandpapers here. I'm going to start with 320 grit, and then 400 and 600, and finally 1000. There it is. Got my mineral spirits. I use that. Mostly it just keeps the sandpaper from clogging up. And I've got both a pretty rigid block and a very flexible pad. And depending on what surface I'm working on, I'll either use the rigid block or the flexible pad. So a little bit of mineral spirits as a lubricant. And again, that's more for the sandpaper than it is for the surface of the instrument. And what I'll do is just continue in this circular pattern until I can't see any more divots or dents in the surface. Even though I filled the pores, there are some that didn't get filled as well as others, and so where those exist, I can see little depressions in the surface. So I'm sanding away the surface lacquer until I get down to those depressions. And once I sand those, I'll have a pretty level, shiny finish when it's all said and done. Yeah, still some. So that's the process. I'll just keep sanding, and once I've sanded through all of the grits, then I'll start buffing, and I'll show that in a little bit. I am finished sanding up to 1000 grit, and now I'm gonna do the first pass on the buffing wheels. I'm anticipating seeing places that I missed where I've still got dents in the finish, and I almost always have to go back and do more sanding, but by doing it this way, it eliminates unnecessary sanding where I don't have any dents or anything. It's sometimes hard to see everything that's happening under the film that this mineral spirit stuff leaves on the surface of the instrument. So I'll give it a buff and see where I am. It doesn't look too bad after the initial buffing. Got a few spots along the bindings that I need to sand a little deeper, and most of the work I need to do is where the fretboard and the neck join the body, and I'll have to get out my special sanding sticks to get into those tight spots, but mostly looking pretty okay so far. There are a lot of tight spots that I can't get at with a regular buffing wheel. Even sanding them is pretty difficult on a ukulele, but especially up here around the end of the fretboard and along the edges of the fretboard and down the side of the neck. What I have to do is start with little pieces of sandpaper that I wrap around this tiny block and very carefully sand all the way around all those spots, which I've done. Now I'm using some rubbing compounds on a piece of felt that I've glued to a stick of wood, and I'll go around all those areas with a couple different compounds, and that'll take out almost all of the scratches. Takes a long time to do all these detail things and get the instrument looking right. Then I'll just use this little handheld buffing wheel to get out the final scratches. And that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to sand the bridge, the lacquer, and buff that, and then take the tape off the fretboard and where I masked off for the bridge and get the bridge glued on.